Wednesday evening, everyone. This is our direct line for December 20th, 2023. Almost in the can. It is by popular demand. We got the Chesapeake Fab Four. We got Governor Ehrlich, First Lady Kendel Ehrlich, Governor Allen, and First Lady Susan Allen. Welcome to the show, and the host are myself and Mark Unkefer. Take it away.
Well, welcome. Topic A, I think in politics today is the Colorado Supreme Court decision to strike former President Trump from the ballot. We've got enough lawyers here to set up a law firm. Who wants to take a first crack as to what they think of that decision? Governor Allen?
I think it's absurd. I think so many of these lawsuits involving former President Trump are more persecution than prosecution, and it's political. That amendment, they're using a post-war between the states Civil War amendment, part of the Constitution, and he hasn't been charged with insurrection. All these lawsuits against him, none of them have to do with insurrection. There may be documents, it may be conspiracies and this kind of stuff, and the value of his assets on loans that he paid and so forth. But it is really ludicrous to be using this approach to keep him off the ballot. The voters, the people ought to decide who they want to be, whether it's a school board member, a governor, or president of the United States. And I think that this case, most of the rest of these kind of 14th Amendment cases have been dismissed, but Colorado has apparently a very politically partisan Supreme Court, and I suspect this case will be appealed to the United States Supreme Court, and I suspect, you never know, but I think they'll just knock it out. And it'll help Trump, and it'll show how desperate these folks are to not win on the basis of ideas or even on personalities that they want to subvert the political process. It is interesting. They say they want to save democracy, and they want to save democracy by preventing democracy.
Well, I certainly agree with the Gov. And Mark, you could start every show with, what do you think about the latest attempt to fill in the blank against Colin? And I just, right before we sat down literally 10 minutes ago, I just, right top of mind here, they treat his candidacy as a joke and as a punchline, quite frankly. They filed articles of impeachment during his first year in office. They invented the Russia hoax and the Mueller investigation. They changed election rules on the eve of the presidential election. They resisted his philosophical initiatives. Ask my wife; she was a firsthand witness. They raided his home. They've indicted him 4 times. They're desperately trying to try him before the 24 election. They've attempted to silence his speech, take away his First Amendment rights. They're attempting to confiscate his New York assets. And now they're attempting to take his name off the ballot. They don't like him. And, and what's interesting to me, this is far larger than this latest attempt, which I agree with the Gov. The Supreme Court will certainly not put up with. But what you see, what I never really thought I'd see is former liberals, former sort of respected members of the Democratic Party, basically coming out and saying, "Yeah, we'll do anything. We don't care. We'll do anything by hook or crook to keep him off the ballot, to make sure he's never again president of the United States." So again, we could start every show with this. Next week it'll be something else. Next month it'll be something else. And as he continues to increase his poll numbers, God knows is there an inflection point here? What they're capable of? I don't know. I'm not sure I want to see that inflection point, but we're certainly living very rare history here. Trump derangement syndrome has gone beyond all bounds, and it still has 10 months to go.
Very true. And I think, do you think they understand that every time they do this, Trump bumps up in fundraising numbers?
No, they don't
polls,
understand that.
And the real joke is the guy living in the White House who doesn't know what day of the week it is. He's spending most of his time in Delaware, frankly. And he gets all hurt when you bring up legitimate accusations about his son. I don't know. It's like they're pretty desperate, for giving him a free glide path.
They're going to run into a problem with the Democrats. I don't know how they're going to do it, but one of the strengths for Joe Biden as president and as a candidate is they thought he could beat Trump, and in 2020 he did. And you could say they changed the rules and all this, that, and the other, but he won, and they used the system in the pandemic for absentee voting and all the rest. Nonetheless, he won. And so as they look at the battleground states of, say, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and they see that Trump is beating Biden in those states, and Nikki Haley's doing even better than Trump. But as they see this, they're going to say, wait a second, we're not going to win this election. I don't know how they're going to. One of my predictions is Biden will not be the Democrats' nominee. If this continues, the Democrats are going to figure some way to get someone else as their nominee because they see his polling. Since polling's been taken, I guess it's since the 1950s or so, Biden's polling is worse than Jimmy Carter, who was always, the bottom of the ocean. And so if they want to win, both parties, Republicans can win if we want to, and so can the Democrats, I suppose. You want to put up your strongest candidate who shares your principles and philosophy and ideas. And I think that somehow, some way, they're going to get someone else to be their nominee other than President Biden. And they also want to avoid the current vice president, Kamala.
That's very rational. That's incredibly rational. But it just might be they hate Trump more than they want to win.
Right.
Yeah, but if Trump wins, they think it's I think it's back to Dwight's question. Do they realize that what they're doing here is actually bolster Trump? It's made him a victim.
Well, but I'm not so sure also that it's so easy to get rid of Biden. He's kind of locked in. And then you have to worry about Kamala.
And you can't dump her.
So it gets really interesting on their side. And then there's the outside influence of Robert Kennedy Jr. And he came out condoning the decision today.
Oh, he did?
Yes. Oh, yeah. He said that, this is terrible. This is not the right thing for the country. So
he condemned it.
Condemned it.
I'm sorry. He condemned it. Yeah. Did I say condone?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Anyway, I apologize.
I'll correct her later. Don't worry. I'll correct her.
Yeah. So anyway, he came out that it was the wrong thing to do, and it's the wrong thing for the country. And so that's going to be a very interesting factor, too. He is.
Also, I want to hear what the two ladies here have to say about Jill. Nobody talked about Jill. Jill's running the whole operation.
Hey, Governor, that's Dr. Jill Biden.
No,
Dr. Jill, right.
Every time that we've had an opportunity as former Senate spouses and current Senate spouses to be with her, that is the murmur throughout the room. Who's going to ask her in the photo line how the heck she's letting him walk out of the house? And Jill is a very nice person. I mean, we all do get along with her. She was easier to relate to than Michelle Obama, frankly. But there's something amiss. And I don't know how she's been able to turn a blind eye to all the other family shenanigans and allow everything to just continue to roll just for the purposes of being in that wonderful house on Observatory Hill. I don't know. I don't know how they're doing it, but I think both parties are in peculiar times. I think a lot of crazy things can happen, whether the Democrats decide that they can get another candidate at their convention, whether Manchin and somebody else gets in as a third party, run, or Kennedy. All of that will be a factor. And if Trump is our nominee, I really think he has been able to gather support because people are frustrated with the two-tier system. And at the same time, people are also still somewhat frustrated with Trump. So what does that do down ticket? How does that play out in all of our congressional races? I think that's going to be maybe a little bit trickier to watch.
Well, yeah, that's a great lead into, I guess, a question for the former senator here. All the numbers, all the pundits look like we're going to win the Senate. I mean, it's just our cycle. They have a lot of vulnerable members up. We don't. It's just the math this cycle. But Susan, I think your point's well taken with the House. I mean, everything I've seen with regard to the House is toss up.
Yeah. The Senate's right. Yeah, we'll win West Virginia. Governor Justice will run, and he'll win in West Virginia. Trump will do great. He digs coal, and so therefore he'll do great in West Virginia. He'll do great in Ohio, another battleground state. He'll do great in Montana, another open, a battleground Senate state. Yeah. So just take those. If the Republicans, Arizona's kind of odd if Sinema runs and so forth. But the point is, I don't see any Republican losing any of our states, and it'll pick up. I think the Republicans could get to 55 in these states, but the House is different. And we look here, Susan and I, in the Virginia Beach. It's the Eastern Shore of Virginia Beach, Southeastern Virginia district that Trump lost last time, and she narrowly won. And to be honest with you, I look at Trump at leading our ticket in Virginia is not, you just look at polls. He's not losing as badly as he did in the general election in 2020, where he lost.
Today.
Yeah, right now.
Today.
He lost on election day by 10%, and now maybe he's down 5%. Still, in these districts where you have the suburban areas, the abortion issue is a front and center issue that needs to be addressed. It is in Virginia. The fact that they ran an ad spending $1.5 million on a 15-week ban or limit was a loser. We win when we're talking about taxes and energy costs and national defense and law enforcement and parents, those sort of, and who decides what kind of car you drive? You decide whether you want a diesel or a battery or a hybrid or a compressed natural gas car, not these officious elitist nannies. And so those are the issues that we win on. We do not win. You got to be straightforward and honest about this. Is direct line, and the same in Maryland. We're not the same. The folks in Virginia and Maryland don't think the way that they do in Oklahoma or Mississippi, and so that issue is going to be a big issue. And it's not beneficial for Jen Kiggins for that to be an issue. Now, my view is the issue of abortion, the parameters of it should be decided by the people in the states, and the federal government shouldn't be involved in it. But the point is, Trump at the top of the ticket is not going to be a help necessarily in some of these swing districts, at least ours here in Virginia.
Our question for you two is, though, we think Youngkin has been a terrific governor. He obviously saw some polls or was convinced by his own polling or someone or something had him all jacked up to make this a referendum on his first couple of years, and it didn't work. And so our question to you is, despite his great success as a governor, despite his great success as a leader of our party, despite his great success taking an issue, education, where we traditionally lose on and we now winning on it, were you surprised or are you disappointed? Is this the end of him? What's the deal? Because he's been our great hope of the last couple years, and we really watch him and follow him and are very impressed with him.
Well, he saved Virginia. Virginia is ready to go over the cliff. And he started liberating Virginia on day one from all the mask mandates and COVID vaccine mandates and all of that. I don't think this is the end of his political career. It was very close to a lot of close elections all across the state. I mean, they were close. The abortion issue, though, is the key issue that the Democrats love to run. And so if you're running an ad in the last month of a campaign on abortion, you're playing on their field. It's just like you're football fans and understand it. Your son's a great football player. If they have 8 in the box, you don't run the ball. You pass it.
Mr. Ehrlich heard that one a lot. Of course,
my gosh.
With Josh Ehrlich, it doesn't matter how many's in the box. You throw. We just throw. So we
Talking
throw
my
every down.
language. I've learned that all year long.
There.
Yeah.
No, that the same applies to politics. So why, if you're going to talk about, if you want to make abortion an issue and kind of diffuse it, I suppose, with a reasonable approach, and I consider 15 weeks or whatever, fairly reasonable with it. But if you want to run that in the summer and say this is where we want to be, not some extreme position, banning it from conception or first 6 weeks or something like that, and just say this. But here's what we really want to do. We want high academic standards and accountability in schools, listening to parents. We want to have more affordable and reliable electricity, reduce your cost of living with less taxes, less regulations, supporting law enforcement. And we think you should decide what kind of car you buy. California.
What do you say? Are you saying that and I agree with you. I think this 15 weeks was reasonable, and I think but it didn't work. And are you saying that it didn't work because it wasn't tried out soon enough? Is that your point?
That's part of it. That's the strategy that was used was probably not the best strategy. And it's unfortunate because $1.5 million is a lot of money to put out there on abortion ads. And the ad itself was a terrible ad, but it played into, as George said, their whole
the Democrats'
topic.
strength.
But I think you all probably have this in Maryland too. I mean, we can sit here and talk about the importance of abortion as an issue, and 15 weeks as a limit that Youngkin felt was a reasonable limit. And many other candidates thought that, but there were still other candidates saying, elect me, and I'm going to go ahead and push for 6 weeks.
Or from birth.
Or from birth. And so the Republicans...
Conception, I should say.
Yeah, so the Republicans couldn't coalesce around a single idea, which is fine. I mean, that's on every issue. But you're going to have that next year in the federal races, too. As much as we can sit here and say it's a state issue, you had, and Mike Pence is a dear friend, you had Mike Pence saying it should be, decided at the federal level. Tim Scott saying it should be decided. Nikki Haley has been great on that issue, saying it's not our deal. It's back in the...
And as Republicans, this is really strictly a states' rights issue. Let the states decide,
Yes.
And I think a good bellwether for what's to come might be coming February 13th, New York 3, which is very similar to Montgomery, Maryland 8, Maryland 6, the old Tom Davis, Frank Wolf, your congressional district governor when you were in Congress, or Governor Ehrlich's congressional. They're very similar.
Right.
If the Republicans hold that seat, would you say that's a good sign for Republicans going forward?
Well,
that's the George Santos seat.
I'm going to give this a 30-second answer. We talk about abortion, and the Democrats know how to drive the issue. As you both said, and we agree, we see it. They know how to drive the issue. Young women, it is what it is. We're likely to lose that issue by 25, 30 points. The whole election comes down to 7 or 8 states, and it comes down to about 150,000 people. And really a couple of tens of thousands of people in 6 states is what it all comes down to. We can talk about all we want about all these issues and everything else, but a couple $1 billion is going to be spent to convince a couple 100,000 people to go one way or another in about 6 or 8 states. And I just think that, okay, if abortion is the predicate, we get it, we understand, but what uptick is there in the Latino vote? What uptick is there? 2 points, 3 points, 4 points in the African American vote, in the suburban Catholic vote. I mean, that's what we're talking about, each one of these issues. And I do think that the cost of living and the Afghanistan, just the whole the border, my God, the border, my God.
I can't look anymore.
The dysfunction of the Biden era, if that doesn't chip away a couple thousand votes in a few of these states, we got a problem as a party, because this is dysfunctional.
And governors, you guys know, we win. When we talk kitchen table issues, we win. President Reagan, 1980, his win. What did he talk about? The economy, jobs, inflation, interest rates. That was what President Reagan campaigned in 1980. And that's where we win. Kitchen table issues is what wins elections. I think
when the economy's bad, Dwight.
Yeah.
When the economy's bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you were hitting all the right notes, but one way to encapsulate all of that is to talk about safety, community safety, because the border is safety, international affairs deal with safety. And what do women want to know? We want to know when we walk out to get in our car that we're not going to get mugged, that we drop our kids off or pick up our parents, we're going to be safe. They're going to be safe. So I think it all revolves around safety and using that terminology to attract the Hispanic vote. There's it really tight in the African American community. You can go into those churches and talk to those women in those churches about safety, and it will be a key unifying issue that you can wrap everything into.
Susie, you sound just like my wife.
Well, it's true. That's what moms think about. They think about safety of their families, of their children. Couldn't agree with you more. I really think it's going to be impactful. And I think, once again, women will probably be deciding the election. And if we keep that word at front and center, the abortion arguments always go on. They'll always go on, and there'll be some impact. But safety right now is key. And, it's alarming how they don't care about safety.
Right.
I mean, it's alarming. And if we show that properly, that'll be really helpful. I'm sorry, Governor.
No, you're right, Kendel. And it's one of our best issues. We're good on taxes, but with this defund the police nonsense, which is the most dumbass thing I've ever heard and in fact, even the minority communities where those highly educated elites in Minneapolis wanted to turn their police departments into social workers, it was overwhelmingly rejected. They had a plebiscite or a referendum, and the African American community says, no, we want law enforcement. We want cops in our neighborhoods because they're more likely, actually, you look statistically, to be victims of crime than people who live in gated communities.
And you're seeing that now. I guarantee you the Democrats are seeing the numbers and seeing how fearful voters have become. They're trying to turn things around in San Francisco. New York is talking about trying to figure out how they can increase their law enforcement there. They know that that's going to be part of their winning strategy if they can turn it. But I think we need to start pounding on it and pound on it now. Yeah. Say for the future, we've got to work on it.
If you're looking for suburban moms, we've seen carjackings in Bethesda, McLean, Tyson's Corner, Annapolis, and these are not, traditional areas where you think, they're unsafe. These are safe areas. These are places where we all live and work. I believe a few months ago there was carjacking right outside the Annapolis Mall, right around the corner from where you guys live. There was one. Tyson's.
2 weeks ago, right in the middle of the day on West Street, Dwight.
Oh my! Yeah,
a young woman at a stoplight, and two guys pulled up behind her, got out with their guns, and carjacked her.
Well, we talk about safety, but we talk about the safety under the rubric of a lot of other issues. This is the border. Right. This is letting people, we don't know where they come from. This is Soros prosecutors. This is defund the police. This is social workers replacing the police. But when I was in the House, and Gov, I know you recall this when you were in the Senate, we talked about security moms and which cycle would women more of the left show up, and what cycle would women more of the right, security moms. After 9/11, it was security moms wanted to be heard. And Susan, man, I hope you're right, because it's not just to fund the police. It's all these issues that share a common bottom line, the bottom line being public safety. And that
And
is
by the way,
Is there another
let me add to this, and Governor Ehrlich brought it up, is the border, and you don't know who's coming in, and on top of all, it's this fentanyl, where you had children in elementary school somehow having preschool being laced with fentanyl for elementary school kids, and I forgot what it was, some candy and so forth. That's part of it. The border being wide open, allowing people to come in from all over the world. You have no idea, no background, no vetting of them is obviously dangerous, and you have people dying from the fentanyl as well as the lawlessness. So I think it's a completely legitimate issue, and it's where the Biden administration has just been such a failure. And do you think back of Ronald Reagan? What was his key question? Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And I think the most stark difference is the border. President Trump, with the border, had the Remain in Mexico Act, was building some of the wall and so forth, but you didn't have this flood of people, thousands every single day. And back to the Democrats, you even have the Democrat mayor of New York City upset with this. You have a Democrat governor of Arizona upset with the Biden administration. So, and obviously they're frontline places in Arizona, but there's so many go up to New York City or they go to Chicago and so forth. So the border is a national issue of concern of the safety and the sovereignty of our country.
Well, I would like to see us expand the safety denominator, if you will, into also education. It's not safe when your second-year-old's getting fed inappropriate materials. It's not safe when you have school administrators thinking they can change the gender of your child without your notice. That's an unsafe environment for children. I mean, we talk about safety, we should talk about it in a very expansive way, because common sense is being threatened by all this stuff.
And by the way, and this is proven out in the Virginia elections, Loudoun County, that everyone knows about Loudoun County, with all the scandals and the transgender going in and assaulting a girl in the bathroom, and the father gets arrested, and so forth. In Loudoun County, the Republican they had a really big state Senate race there. The Republican got trounced by the Democrat in Loudoun County. Abortion was a key issue. However, locally in Loudoun, they reelected a Republican sheriff, and a Republican won the Commonwealth's attorney or district attorney race against one of these Soros-backed prosecutors who looks at the criminal as the victim. And so even in Loudoun County, so you could see that ticket splitting where voters discerned a difference. All right, these folks are running for the legislature. We don't like the Republican. However, we want somebody who's prosecuting and convicting criminals here, and a Republican won that in the very same election. So that validates your view, Governor Ehrlich, on how these type of issues matter to voters.
I wonder if one of the fault lines we're seeing is that the Democratic Party issues we've seen on criminal justice, on the border, whatever, is really driven by, for lack of a better word, the faculty lounge. It appeals to the upper income, well-educated, college-educated voters, but it has the impact of really turning off. We talked about the security voters, but turning off, more rank and file traditional Democrats who see a party that just doesn't appeal to the issues that they've historically identified Democratic politicians.
We like to talk about this. I've written 2 books about this, and we like to talk about Reagan Republicans, and we like to talk about George Allen Democrats and Bob Ehrlich Democrats and all this stuff. But Joe Biden won Pennsylvania. Gas field workers voted to put themselves out of business. So, we talk about it. It's true to some extent. We are the working class party these days. We are the blue collar party. We're the party of people with dirt under their fingernails, all that stuff. It's Jack Kemp's party. Yay. But it's still not complete. Joe Biden won Pennsylvania. Joe Biden won Michigan. Joe Biden won Wisconsin. And Gov, it's not complete until we get it done with blue collar America. We're close, but it's not done yet.
Well, some of the blue collar, the rank and file union workers will vote one way, but the union bosses, they're the other way. The prime example of what you just said, one of the first acts of President Biden was to shut down the Keystone XL pipeline, bringing oil out of Alberta, Canada.
Yep.
And the pipe fitters union boss accepted it. I said, there's 10,000 pipe fitter jobs just shut down, just lost like that. And I said, who are they representing? They're certainly not representing the rank and file. And so what we need to do is get around the union bosses and get to the men and women, the workers. And I think that's what Reagan did. I think Trump did. You did it. I was able to do it. The bosses don't like it, but I think the workers understand that. Then you get into a lot of other issues, gun rights and parents' rights and so forth.
We own these issues. Speaking of which, this is called a segue. We have writers. We have writers on this show. We have big time writers. I'm looking at one right there too. I'm sitting next to one. I got a new book coming out. It's time for blatant promotion, Dwight, Mark.
Yes,
it's time
absolutely.
for the Allens and the Ehrlichs to promote themselves.
No,
Tell us about your new book.
We want to hear about your book.
It's about time someone asked me.
What is your book made? What's the name of your book? Do you have a picture of it?
There's a guy named Governor Allen who gave me a great quote on it. It's on the cover. I don't have the cover. We're negotiating the title. But the bottom,
but you're gonna love it.
But it's done, and it's going to the printer soon, and we're going to find out the title. But I know a reference guide is going to be part of the title because it's a reference guide. 102 reasons why you should vote against Joe Biden is what basically.
And every candidate running needs to buy that book.
Thank you, Dwight. Thank you, Dwight.
AKA, what to put out there to fight with your neighbor.
Now here's the deal. That uncle you don't like, that lib uncle, give that uncle this book.
Now, guidebook to battle with your neighbor.
Now,
perfect.
Now listen, I've been sleeping with this woman for a long time, but I didn't realize I was sleeping with another author. And recently that came to light. Would you care to talk about your writing there?
Just follow the Daily Caller in the opinion section and you'll see another Ehrlich. So that's good and fun.
How about that?
Way to go, Kendel.
Yeah, well.
Are you picking your topics or do they give you an
idea?
I
am picking my topics. Awesome. They asked me to, just give it a whirl. And Susan, like you, trying to take on the women's perspective and the safety perspective and the fentanyl and the drugs and, why families are so afraid right now.
And Susan, ask her who her editor is. Ask her right now.
He's an expert.
It's got to be that cute boy sitting next to you. I don't
know. Don't you have a podcast or something that's really well goes really well too?
We have
every candidate should be downloading.
Bob and Kendel Ehrlich, Bottom Line with Bob and Kendel Ehrlich.
And that's another thing. Actually, that's another thing. And every candidate should be listening to that podcast too. Frankly,
good advice. What's happening in Allen's world these days? What's happening with you guys?
George is working on some op-eds that were some have come out, some are waiting, but a new book came out about his father, who was known as a great coach with the Redskins and the Bears and the Rams, and it's a really thorough book on Coach George Allen, A Football Life, written by a Marylander, Mike Richmond. And it's a really cool book for people who want to know about motivating others in life. I think your dad was really good at that, not just players on the field, but motivating people in general. And he loves studying how people were successful and why. And he, of course, was so successful himself. And George will be doing a book signing in January sometime up at Tyson's.
Yeah, with the author. With the author.
Get that on Amazon?
Yeah, we'll buy it on Amazon. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah,
actually the guy who wrote it, it's so detailed. I actually learned something about it because it goes through his entire life. And our parents, Dwight's parents, Mark's, Kendall's and Bob's and yours, grew up in a different time during the Depression. You had to work hard or you starved. And he was driven, and attention to detail and hard work and consistency. And you know this, Bob, as governor, you also have to be a good judge of talent. And he had some really great coaches that he assembled with him. Dick Vermeil wrote the foreword. He was the first special teams coach ever. My father's the first one to ever have a special teams coach. He was an innovator, and so forth. But there's good principles in there for whatever. The football fans will love it. But
I'm going to love it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to promote it. And I just wonder what he'd say about likeness revenue and the portal and free agency and paying quarterbacks $10 million a year in college or $5 million at Alabama. I mean, it is. He was old. He defined old school. He would not.
But he was a player's coach.
Yeah,
he was a player's coach, and they had free agency for 1 year in the 70s, and that's how he got John Riggins to the Redskins out of the Jets. He got Gene Fugate from the Cowboys and someone else. So he liked free agency, and that's what
he liked free agency in the pros.
Well, I know, but it's the same principle. Why should? Well, yeah, I'll not speak for my dead father. My general view is the whole thing is a collusive deal that the college players have to play football for 3 years. Colleges make billions of dollars, and the players in a sport that you well know is very susceptible to injury. I don't mind players getting paid. We
don't mind
the coaches.
That's my only point. We agree. I have no problem with players getting paid. We don't like the lack of any supervision. It seems unfair. It's a Wild West right now.
It is kind of, but most of the schools, like Virginia schools, are actually all using the same marketing agency to try to keep it fair and open.
Oh, I like that.
So as long as colleges are reporting, and that's really what they're trying to do, is make sure that everybody's being very honest about what they're getting and their value, and gauging it between one another.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all very nice and genteel, and they'll get their butts kicked by Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas.
Well, they'll also be in court for restraint of trade, probably. But
exactly. No, the one thing they got to do the one thing that there needs to be ultimately some sort of guardrails put on this portal, because it is very disruptive. I don't mind players. If they're second or third string, they want to play, let them go to some other college to play, and don't make them sit out a year and all that sort of stuff. But there probably needs to be some guardrails put on it. The Congress is not going to act on this. I mean, for these college presidents to think, or the NCAA going to think that Congress is going to come up with something is I think unrealistic. It may be what they'll have to do, and I'm not for unions, but the way that the NFL gets away with all of this restraint of trade in making players have to be in college for 3 years is a collective bargaining agreement. And they end up with a collective bargaining agreement, and that's a way that the players union or players association agrees with management, and they say, all right, these are going to be the rules, and those get negotiated that way. And because in hockey, as you know, in hockey, basketball, baseball, these players can, as a practical matter, get paid right out of high school. Football's different.
Very much so. And it is going to be interesting. But if they expect Congress can't protect our border.
Yeah, I mean,
Congress can't protect our border.
And I think that's the forum.
That is not happening. And listen, our son was in the portal last year. If you made the wrong decision, if you're behind a bunch of guys, if you're in the wrong, what division, there's lots of good reasons, some bad reasons. There's also some bad reasons. But there's a lot of good reasons to transfer, not to sit out. So we get it. But there needs to be, I love your term, guardrails. There's no guardrails now about anything. And that a lot of kids can get lost in the
including
in
moving
the
conferences.
Yeah.
That's killing college football also.
Oh God.
Well, it depends on who's moving.
Or it depends which team you like, right?
Right.
Maryland
Well,
going to the Big Ten was a big mistake.
Well, that's the hypocrisy. That's the hypocrisy of these colleges saying, "Oh, the players moving and oh, they're getting paid. So what?" And here they are. I mean, the Atlantic Coast Conference having Cal and Stanford in it. So what is it? The All Coast Conference? I mean, and what the cost is going to be for them? Football can handle it because of all the revenues, the TV revenues, and so few games. But all these non-revenue sports that parents and a few friends go to see, to making the whatever team it may be, volleyball team or field hockey team or whatever, to go all the way to Stanford from Virginia and so forth, it just doesn't make economic sense. So they're going to end up.
Talks about nobody talks about is the impact on the academics. I mean, all this travel for these kids, it's not good for their academics. We all know that, and nobody even brings it up. It's never even brought up.
Well, actually, I'm on the ODU board, and I'm on the athletics committee, and we did have our committee meeting about 2 weeks ago, and I did ask about that because having been on the JMU board, I also was on the athletics committee, and they were very diligent about reporting to us any student who is not achieving the standards, the NCAA standards academically at the time, and they would do remedial work. Not all colleges and universities are as diligent, but the NCAA has tried to push that, and they have tried to put things in place that make sure that these kids graduate with a degree and walk away with something, because they may be injured in the end and not go on to play.
Well, the worst are, again, these non-revenue sports, though. The football games are traditionally on a Saturday, and then some have Thursday games, but mostly they're weekend. These other non-revenue sports, including basketball, we have basketball during the whole week, and it's not conducive to going to classes. Class. You're not even going to be in class.
Volleyball team UCLA is going to be coming east for weeks at a time.
Yeah,
I mean, it just you're right. The revenue doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. But again,
what they need to do, the non-revenue sports, you're going to have to take football separate, because that's where all the revenue comes from, is football, and that pays for everything else. Women's and men basketball can also be revenue generators. And I think college basketball, women and men, is much better at the college level than the pros. I think it's a much more exciting game. But all the rest of them don't make money. So what you do with those is, I think you make them regional things. So that you say Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina, those are where you play. You still have a national championship where the best out of all the the different sub-regions, Mid-Atlantic, South Atlantic, North Atlantic, whatever, you still have a national championship, but the teams you play are a bus ride away. You're not having to take airplanes to go to those games, and that would be the rational way of handling these.
Some schools are doing that. JMU does that. They separate out their sports.
Well, good, but if you're in a conference, if you got a conference like the Big Ten and the ACC that is literally coast to coast, somebody's going to, or you're just not going to play teams further. So the JMU's, and that's good that they're doing that. But the point is, it's not the same as the SEC.
Yeah.
And we also hate traditional rivalries. If Oklahoma State doesn't play Oklahoma, that's a tragedy for college football. You know that. We know that. I mean, anyway, we're off topic here because you're talking to jocks and jocks. But buy the book is the point. Buy the book.
Thanks.
About Coach Allen.
Yeah, and Gov, I'll be putting a link to that book up on our book club list on our club site. So
great. Awesome.
And our book will be going up in a month. Our book will be up in less than a month.
Great. Just in the nick of time.
Yes.
And it's a shame we don't have it before Christmas, because it sounds like we could use it for some of those family conversations that are about.
That could be, but this is really for the springtime when you're watering the lawn and that liberal next to you is complaining about Biden, and you go, "Hey, page 62. It's reason 62." That's what it's a reference. You're going to need it. Carry it with you wherever you go.
Well, no, you got to get your book out before Super Tuesday. Then.
Oh yeah.
You got to get out before Super Tuesday. We're so happy where we live. Our neighbors are great. We don't. Our neighbors had a bumper sticker when Northam was governor and shutting everything down on the back of his pickup truck, and it said, "My governor is an idiot," and he's got an arsenal of guns. And I said, "All right, if Youngkin
Sounds like a great neighborhood."
Oh, he's a great. Oh, that's a great neighbor. We love it. And so when Youngkin, I said, if Youngkin wins, you're going to have to take that bumper sticker off the back of your truck. And he did. Now he says,
listen,
lions, not sheep. But
we are more mixed here with our neighbors. But that's another story. But we wish all of you a Merry Christmas. We pray for a lot of things. We pray that Hamas loses fast and these innocent people stop dying, and we pray for the restoration of free speech and our country and everything else. But we also thank God for our friends and our colleagues and our opportunity to speak still freely in our country and what this show is all about. And we love the Allens and Mark, obviously, and Dwight. We love you. Despite the fact you're from Montgomery County, we still love you.
We appreciate that you fight so hard.
We appreciate you
That's
fighting.
for sure.
You talk about a rear guard action, Allens. These two in Montgomery County, that's a rear guard action. That is difficult every day.
We know you know that.
We understand that.
behind the lines. They're working behind the lines.
We're like the French resistance. We're going to get killed by the Nazis, but D-Day will be successful ultimately.
Well, we love doing the show.
Have a happy holiday and thanks for coming on.
Oh, Merry
Thank you.
Christmas
Thank you,
to
and
you all.
Merry
Christmas,
Christmas, everybody.
And let's stand with our friends in Israel, our friends in
Yes.
Ukraine, and standing strong for freedom all over the world.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Godspeed, everybody.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks.
Bye.
Adios.